Welcome everyone to the May Facilities Committee meeting. And we're going to be seeing a lot of construction stuff going on, which is good, always nice. Ms. Roy, do you want to lead the meeting, these items?
Yes. So the first item is a construction update discussion. And we're going to start off with the projects currently being led by CPL. So we're doing this in a discussion format this evening, so I'll ask for very specific pieces of information for you guys to provide, okay? Relative to Heritage, we're hoping to understand what work has been completed this month. I think that's Mr. Devine.
I got you, I'm listening.
What work has been completed this month?
Sure. So, Vales Gate, right?
Heritage.
So Heritage is looking really, really well. I'll start off with the preparation that we've been ongoing for the summertime. We've been doing a lot of work, having a lot of discussions with the team here, as well as the team out there inside the school, meaning the principal and staff, preparing and navigating our way through the building through the summertime to make sure that we allow enough time for the district to get back in and utilize the school, clean the school, and prepare their classrooms for the opening of the next school year. So,
Could you please focus on what was completed over the past month?
sure. So what was completed over the past month? We have a roof on the building. We have the block facade is up. Windows are framed. All the steel is complete. All the concrete pads for the mechanical units around the building have been completed. We also took advantage of a couple days off that you had here and got some work done on the interior of the school. We got some ductwork hung in the gym, and a couple electrical upgrades as well done during that time. So,
Do you have any updates on the HVAC equipment delivery schedules and any implications for those dates?
we do. We've passed them out to the district this week. Looks like as far as the mechanical units themselves, everything is coming in on time. There are a few things that are coming, being released in July, some of the R2 units that are going on that building in Heritage, but we feel that we'll have them in time and installed in time and ready for school opening.
And then,
Can I just ask one question in reference to that? The one thing we're waiting for Heritage is still on order, is the one thing that's the big project?
So that's the switch gear, yep.
Yeah.
So that's the entire electrical upgrade. Yeah, that's still unfortunately not being shipped until October.
Sorry.
that's okay. I was just that's the only work remaining for next summer.
Correct.
Has the board approved change orders on that yet?
I believe we just sent in the package
I just
for
sent
your review.
recommendation memo.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I didn't. You'll get that tomorrow. I started it.
Okay, I will look at that. Do you guys have any questions on Heritage?
And Mr. Dory, where's he? Oh, there he is. Do you have any questions on this at all? Okay. Anybody else? Andy?
Just got the results for the roof scan and Heritage of the kitchen. There's a small 3x3 area that the insulation is wet. The rest of the roof is dry.
That's great news.
So we can restore if you want. I'll talk to Kim about that.
Great.
I'm gonna get the map tomorrow, but he just texted me. It's just the area where we cut to the right, 6 feet from there, 3x3 area is wet. The rest of the roof is dry.
That's great news. Okay.
Vales Gate, could you talk about what you guys have done there the last month?
So at Vales Gate, not much has gone on at Vales Gate due to the reconfiguration of the space of the new addition. However, we were able to complete the odds and ends on the outside, like caulking in the windows. The roofing system itself, again, we had a couple days where we were able to get inside the building and do some ductwork and some electrical upgrades as well. But as of this past Monday, we are back to work full speed with all the contractors, and all of the changes that were made are being implemented. All the CMU walls are being erected inside. All the door frames have been changed, and that's about it.
Can you talk a little bit about the summer schedule? I know we've been trying to coordinate some work the district needs to complete in that building.
Sure. So I know at Vales Gate, Andy and I have spoken. I know we're getting a new stage curtain. So him and I actually met at the building today, walked through the building, kind of coordinating our work and your work as well. And the first week where the teachers or the staff will be in the building, we recognized a different entrance. We come up with a good idea. I'll relay that back to the contractors and make sure that the staff can get in and out of the building safely that first week.
I know we also had significant work that we had planned to do in the gym. Have you guys figured out how to coordinate that yet?
That is correct. So one of the first things that the contractor is committed to and we have coordinated was getting into that gym as soon as possible. Or for day one, I should say, not as soon as possible. We'll do the demo of those units. Unfortunately, I think the units themselves, the air handler units, ship out. They'll be here, I think, the third week of the summer. So we'll be able to, we talked about that. August 1st, I believe is, not August 1st, yes, August 1st, I believe was the date that Andy and I spoke that he can get in there and do his work.
That's interior air handling units you're talking about, or on the roof?
Nope, so these are actually inside the building. They're the ones that, when you walk through a building, you see them exposed. The mechanical units, we call them air handler units. The RTUs is what would be on the outside, rooftop units.
Do you have an update on the HVAC delivery dates for Vales Gate?
We do. Fortunately, we did have an issue at one time with RTU4, which is the one on the new addition. The contractor has just sent us a new updated version of it. Looks like everything will be here on time.
And I know the district has requested the buildings be turned back over by August 18th. Is that in the schedule?
That is in the schedule, and that is our goal, yes.
Transitioning to CTE. You guys are really close to an SED submission.
Yes, June 2nd is what we're working towards. So we had our page turn on May 4th, and we're picking up a couple of comments that came out of that. And then we are just moving full steam ahead to an SED submission, and you can expect documents, SED forms for signature early next week.
Okay. We had a couple follow-up meetings we needed to schedule from that as well, correct?
Yes. So we're gonna do landscaping, interiors, and we had plans to meet on Tuesday, I believe, with the instructors. It's been a long time since they've seen the plans, but that's now been pushed and we're trying to get that rescheduled as soon as we can.
When we do the landscaping, I think we're gonna do more of a comprehensive site work discussion was what
Yep.
we were leaning towards.
Correct.
Will you be coordinating that, or do you need the district to coordinate that?
You probably have more people on your end to coordinate, so if you wanna send us some dates, we can work with those.
In reference to the submission to SED, what kind of time frame are you predicting for approval, say, or at least come back with questions would be a plus?
So what I know right now is that SED is trending about 14 weeks, and that's how long it will sit before they pick it up for review. So what we have committed to do is request an in-person review, so that this is a huge project, hundreds of drawings. So I think it makes sense to sit with them directly and answer their questions. That will at least expedite the review process itself. There will still be a process of an addenda where we'll have to respond to comments that come out of that, but having that face-to-face review is probably the quickest way to get through the review.
Pages and pages of questions.
Well, what they'll do is they'll go through, and if they don't understand something, they'll ask a question. If they just asked it direct to us, we can direct them to where they can find it. It's just a quicker way to get through things.
Okay. All right, do you have more on the building?
Not on CTE, just Ms.
Okay, Mr. Doré, do you have anything?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay.
New Windsor?
So in New Windsor, we on our end are prepared to go out for bid on the 22nd. We did receive SED approval on, I believe that was May 2nd. So documents are just being buttoned up right now. I believe the district and the Palumbo group are working through the summary of work and the logistics plan. I just sent a couple of pieces of information to the district, and we're just pulling together those last few items that we need to be able to publish and get out to bid.
Do you have an anticipated bid schedule? An award timeline?
We do, and I sent that out to the district for your review.
Which is
Oh.
If you need the dates.
Yeah, so we have them in here too. So release for bid on May 22nd. The bid opening, we're anticipating June 12th. And anticipating the contract of award, which we don't know the Board of Ed meeting yet, but we're anticipating it at the end of July.
to award.
Now, that has the potential to shift based on when we receive all the information back. I believe, the general conditions of your contract language is with the attorney right now. So, that would be something that needs to be incorporated prior to going out. So I think we said if we bid sometime between May 22nd, or release for bid between May 22nd and June 12th, we were well within the window to be able to maintain the schedule.
So are things better now in going out for bid compared to maybe a year or two ago when labor was tight and items were in short supply? Do you anticipate that being a little better at this point?
If you're referring to dollar-wise, some things have come down, some things have increased. I would say it's an even balance. We're gonna see the same that we have in the last couple of years, I believe. We haven't seen much drop dramatically. Mechanical was always one of the toughest items to grasp on because it just kept increasing in cost. And we're seeing it stabilize, but we're not seeing it drop. As far as contractor-wise, now this is probably not the greatest time to go out to bid, to be perfectly honest, but it's okay. There's a lot of work out there. This is a particularly larger building, so we're gonna attract some of those bigger contractors than some of the smaller ones that we've seen on some of the additions. So we feel very confident we'll get a good turnout, and I think we'll get good numbers too.
Good. Mr. Dory, any questions? No?
Anything else on those 4 buildings?
I don't have anything on the 4, anyone? No? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Everybody.
Thank you for coming, guys.
Next, we're gonna discuss the Heritage Site Plan, the NFA main locker room, which the voters approved on Tuesday, and the NFA main emergency project.
suppose I can just sit, right? How do they get from
This is gonna be focused on budget and timeline primarily until we get to.
Primarily, and I will go up because when we get to the emergency project, I want to go through it with you specifically. So, and again, you know what the agenda is, and again, our focus is always on kids. So, just to keep that first and foremost in our mind, let's talk about the Heritage Site Project. I didn't put the depiction of it. Everyone knows hopefully what those improvements are, including the addition of a second entry into that campus, which is very vital. But just remember from a budgeting standpoint, originally we had 2.5 million, this was increased. It's coming out of the 2019 bond, it's 3.729 million, which includes that secondary access point into the campus, includes expanding the parking, includes those runoff lanes for bringing all of the parents off of Union Avenue to avoid those backups, as well as the improvement of the sidewalks around the bus loop, extending them for the bus loading and unloading and making sure that they're the 10-foot width that's required by the education department. So a lot of, and then some stormwater management, where we had pointed out at the last meeting. We do have some hydrants that need to get relocated for this. We are doing a mill and repave of the entry road. We're gonna repave the bus loop itself. Along with this, we're also gonna be adding some site lighting, more specifically for that new secondary entry. From a schedule standpoint.
Wait, before you go to that
Sure.
slide, Mr. Duray, do you have any on the finance part of it?
Not necessarily the finance, we had spoken about the exit, possibly adding another lane. And you said you were gonna look at
Another lane off of Union or another like
out of the parking area into Union, a turn lane.
So looking at the new access road, if I recall correctly from the last conversation, we were looking at potentially 2 lanes leaving and 1 lane coming in rather than it just being 1 each way.
Yeah, right now it's 1 each way, and that's what was prepared for as part of the study with the county, who had to authorize this. So we could go back and talk with them about that. Certainly, we've got plenty of time to do that if we wanted to insert that into the documents. Because they did, the study that we did for them that they required us to complete did not warrant a traffic light. It did not restrict to left or right turns only. We can go right or left from that entry exit. So those were some of the things that we were concerned about when we did that study, and the sightline distances proved that we weren't required to meet standards. So I can go back and we can certainly look at that.
With the study, was it the study done at a specific time? Because not totally familiar with the school, but I would think a lot of the exit would be at one time.
Yeah, it was done during the school times and during those egresses. The county actually prescribed what we had to do to conform with their requirements of the study. And I think I did provide copy to the district, and certainly, we could take a look at that. But yeah, they gave us the requirements that we had to follow for the study.
A couple of questions with the financing side for Ms. Loring. Adding, the original discussion on this did include another access road. So did that add $1 million to the cost of the project by adding that road?
So I think it was twofold. I think one was, we've had a lot of escalation in the past couple of years, and especially anything with asphalt in it. So I think that in part made up some of the 1.2 million increase, but the other is the road itself.
So now, the other,
And there, there's a lot, and we actually shifted the road a little bit from the earlier to avoid a lot of the earthwork that we were gonna have to do to put that roadway in place, but still meet the requirements of the county for their study as well.
It also has like a full mill and repave of the entire access road as it sits now, as well as the entire bus loop and
Right.
the entire sidewalk to make them compliant. That was not originally on the radar, so there's a couple things that really drove that.
Right,
Okay.
we traded off some things also with the current project for the cafeteria addition. They were gonna originally do the throat at Union. We're doing that now as part of our project. We've also picked up some of their sidewalks because one, they were doing the sidewalks and they were only 5 feet wide. They need to be 10 foot wide for a bus loading, unloading per SED. And they're gonna then do the emergency access lane behind the building for the fire apparatus. And we've allowed in our expansion plan of the parking, we've allowed for that access through the parking lot and around the school.
so what you're saying is in these figures?
Correct.
So we're reducing the figures of the capital bond project to some degree?
So we've made some adjustments because the actual paving of that emergency access road behind the building was not incorporated into the bid. So while we're taking some scope out, we are now putting that scope in. So I wouldn't anticipate the total project cost.
Okay, all right, so, but my real question is we allocated 2.5 million, correct?
Mhm.
We haven't allocated any more, even though it's up to 3.7. What is the district's plan for that? To go forward with this the way it is and find the additional 1.2 million?
It is the district's recommendation that we would proceed with this comprehensive approach to heritage, do it once, do it right. And then resources from the capital bonds additional resources will be allocated to do this.
From the capital bond,
Yes,
the
yes,
280 million.
yes.
And I think one of the importance is let's strike while the iron's hot. The county has agreed to let you put this secondary road in, entrance exit, where for the past 20 years they haven't allowed it. So we were shocked by that. So, if they change administration or somebody new comes in and then doesn't want to do it, I think, kind of behooves us to do it while they're willing to let us do it.
Okay. All right,
From a schedule standpoint, we're right on track. We made the submission April 18th to the Education Department. We're expecting we're gonna come out of the Education Department in early August. I don't expect there's gonna be a lot of commentary on what's being proposed. It's all site work, so there's not a lot there for them to pick at. We'd look to bid it September, October, great time period to bid. We're gonna get very competitive bids for people queuing up for the following summer's work. And, start of construction, we'll award contracts in November, start of construction spring. Again, we could start this earlier than the end of the school year because they could start to prep for that new entry exit roadway. So we can get them on site early and start getting that prepped up with the anticipated completion of August 30th. I don't expect we'll go beyond that. We'll have some closeout beyond that, of course, but we'll be substantially complete and ready for operations on August 30th, ready for the school year. It's not that significant. Plus, if we get an early jump on it, we'll be well ahead of it.
any more questions, Mr. Duray, on heritage?
Good.
Ms. Roaring, we good on heritage? Okay.
So let's talk about the locker rooms. Again, just to remember everybody, this is what was approved on Tuesday. Again, demolitions all the way through fit out. almost $2.6 million. That's our budget for the project. Remember, that's for a renovation of about a 5,500 square foot locker room. Remember, it's the boys' locker room, boys' team room, girls' team room, office for the girls, office for the girls' PE, and office for the boys' PE, and a gender-neutral locker room, and a washer-dryer room, and some room for mechanicals. So schedule. So we're looking at developing the construction documents and getting those in November 3rd. Again, it's a very complicated project, believe it or not. I'm gonna try to improve on that date, but right now this is the date I wanna commit to. I'm gonna hopefully shave a few weeks off of this, but I wanna really make sure, because it's a very complicated job with a messy gut renovation and slab removal and replacement with under utilities. I wanna make sure we got it right. We'll go to SED November 6th, come out on or about March 1st. Now that's based on the current queue. I expect that after we get past September of this year, when no more ARPA projects are allowed to be submitted, the queue will ease off and we'll be in a better cycle. And then bid in March, April of next year, award contracts in May, and start construction in July. But I expect that we'll probably go well past into October before we're substantially complete. Again, it's a very messy project, but you know, you're not really utilizing these locker rooms right now. So, you know, going past the September schedule, I don't think, or at least I hope, is not that big of an issue for the district.
Mr. Doré, do you have any questions? A question I have, well, firstly, I was involved with the pool locker room, and I know it's really technical,
It is.
the height of the lockers and everything, the size. Originally, wasn't the concrete replacement part together grouped with this, or no?
No,
It wasn't?
it was not. The concrete replacement issues at NFA Main on March 1st, the board declared an emergency project that's being handled separately. The timeline for submission, approval, and execution is much more compressed because we're looking to have that ready for the opening of school, which is actually our next project we're gonna discuss.
So this is just the standard?
This is just the locker room piece that we had to go to the voters to approve because it wasn't originally
Oh, okay,
in.
so it wasn't on it, so this is a
Yes.
separate, okay, all right.
Yeah, this wasn't part of that 2019 referendum.
This was approved Tuesday.
And we didn't ask for 2.5 though, did we?
Yes, we
You
did.
We
did,
did, okay.
you did.
I thought it was, okay. Very good, all right.
Yeah, so we're already rallying our team. We're gonna start putting a schedule together about meetings for the design process, contract, all that kind of stuff. But we're starting into it. I've got dedicated staff working on this project because we gotta keep it moving.
All
So let's talk about the emergency concrete replacement. Just to recall for everybody, so the locker room is obviously right here, the locker room renovation project. So this is that elevated slab with the stairs that comes down behind the building. I did put some photographs in. I think it's important that you see it. So the elevated slab is up here. These are doors into the gym, and this is that upper vestibule. Now inside this set of doors was originally part of the exterior slab, and when they built the addition, that was enclosed for a vestibule. So all of that, including the slab inside those doors, has to be replaced. So which makes this a little more complicated. And in addition, all of this system is failing. So we're replacing all of that slab, all of the stairs, all of the walls, all the way around. We're gonna correct a couple of conditions that you have currently. You can see all of this has let major water infiltration into the building, into a mechanical space below the stairs. There's no drainage for these slabs, and that was really one of the big problems, where we're gonna put drainage in our slabs to avoid that in the future, because it's still gonna be exterior. And here's that point where they married this project in and enclosed this as part of a vestibule with the roof. We're actually gonna, as part of the project, have to shore that roof so that we can take this slab as well as the slab at the interior out. So here's the interior. And the reason they enclosed it is because it has a emergency egress stair from what's now your fitness room, your weight room. This stair, by the way, is not to code, and so we're gonna correct that because we gotta take it out anyways, because we gotta replace this whole slab underneath it. So it's all gonna come out, and we're gonna repair all that, because we know, remember, this is an emergency project, so we're out to bid already. But so SED won't have reviewed this, we'll already be in construction. But we know what SED is gonna tell us to do. They're gonna say, you're gonna have to correct this condition. So our project corrects this exiting condition, which doesn't meet the current code. I'm not sure about the code at the time, but that's another. So, because the slab was in such disrepair and continuing to deteriorate, we did, a few weeks back, put impact scaffolding below it because we were afraid major chunks of the system was gonna dislodge. And we didn't want, because this door still is a required egress door. And same with the double doors for the out the locker room. And so I took pictures before we put the impact scaffolding in place so you can see the conditions. You can see all of this is set to dislodge, and we didn't want that to happen. I can't really tell you how long any of that's gonna last. They did initially put jack posts in, but because they're point loaded, our structural person was very concerned that we're not spreading that load and it's not helping the condition. So we did that as a safety measure. So that's all in place. Just some of the excerpts. So you can see the system that we're replacing is a new slab all the way across and into that vestibule, down the stairs. We're replacing this whole stair system. And when we do that, we're gonna take this, there's a mechanical unit underneath the stairs. We're gonna take that unit out. It's gonna get replaced with the locker room project. We're not gonna put it back in here. We're gonna have a space for it in the locker rooms. Because that's really not a great location for that. It has to actually pierce the wall low, and then you have to have exposed ductwork, which is there now. And we really want to eliminate that from the locker room because it just gets abused and beat up, and it's just not in the right location. So we're gonna correct that. We're gonna widen the stair out to the requirement of 2 foot 8 inches by code, 2 foot 8 inches by code, which is required. All these doors get replaced, the doors from the gym, the doors to the vestibules, upper and lower. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to actually take this landing and we're going to lower it by 2 steps. And we're doing that because right now, the issue with that is kids get onto here and then jump on this wall, and you can see the damage they're causing to your soffit. And so we're lowering that whole system by about 1 foot. And then in addition, we're not gonna go back in with these high wing walls, masonry walls. Very expensive to build like that. What we're gonna go in and do is we're gonna have, as you can see, we're gonna have railing systems. So that's gonna do 2 things. It's gonna prevent the students from being able to access that upper area. It's also gonna let a lot more light back into this area, which is really dark right now. So we're trying to avoid that. We're trying to improve that condition altogether.
It also improves sightlines for supervision. When they have students out for PE and things like that, you have their sightline back into that area rather than a place kids can tuck in behind.
And the office will be there in the new plan for the locker rooms, and they're gonna have direct glazing right out to this underside, this area at the underside, right through here. So you can see we're coming down 2 additional risers. Here's the new railing system. So it'll be far more open than it is currently. New storefront systems here and below. New doors all the way around, and all of it's going to be concrete. You will have the metal nosings on the stairs, again, for additional durability that aren't there now. And then obviously we'll reclaim the asphalt where it's disturbed for the new foundation systems and everything for this whole system. All the railing systems will be aluminum, so that you don't ever have to paint or worry about how the long-term durability or maintenance of them. And they're all gonna be sleeved into the concrete. So we're not gonna, surface mount or bolt mount them to the surface, which those tend to deteriorate much quicker. So is there any questions about the design so far?
Mr. Dore?
No, I'm good, thank you.
It's a tricky little project. So that's kind of the good news, right? Is we know what we're doing.
Oh, wait, before you go on, I have a question. What criteria is used to make it an emergency project for the state, and how do they treat it differently?
So it's a good question. So the criteria for emergency project is something that is in imminent failure, which we had. We did abate the failure, but this is a required egress way from those areas. So in order to replace them, we have to replace them during the summer when students aren't in session, because if we are doing this in the school year, you can't use your gym. So went up to the state as emergency. It'll get a preferential review. So they'll pick it right up. When I say right up, probably within a week. And they'll start to review it and they'll turn it around more quickly because they know it's an emergency declaration. Now, because it's an emergency declaration, we don't have to wait for their review. We proceed right to bid. So we're out to bid. We went out to bid on Tuesday because we have to get it executed this summer. It means contractors have to have this done by, August 30th. Or else those students cannot use the gym because this is a required exit way for this gymnasium and that vestibule. So it has to be done in the summer. So it's either we do it this summer or we have this condition that's been around for far too long. We have to wait an entire another year to do it next summer. And we can't begin the work until students are out at the end of June because again, or else they wouldn't be able to use that portion of the building.
Well, okay, so I understand that you can go out to bid with it being, that we declared or you declared.
We can actually finish the project.
So they don't come back with anything that needs to be changed?
They may, but we've done a lot to predict exactly what they're gonna say. So that, when I talked about we're gonna correct the stair condition. We're correcting the stair condition, we're correcting the exit way from the fitness room, which doesn't meet code. We know that they're gonna tell us, when you take that down, you better correct that. We know they're gonna tell us that, right? So we've gone through and looked at all of those areas that they may tell us or that they would tell us, you have to bring this up to a different compliance. Beyond that, there's not a lot else that they could, comment on. It's an exterior staircase and an elevated slab. But the interior things, the things that relate to egress width, how you egress, door swings of egress, those they would definitely be able to. And so we've already put them in the job to have that out of the way. Rather than get midway through and then we got a big change order we're issuing to the contractor.
Okay.
We do, we're gonna need a very specific contractor to do this job. This is and this is a reinforced concrete slab project, so there's a lot to it. We eliminated a lot of the masonry, so we're not going to go back in with masonry around the perimeter. We're gonna pour it as a concrete foundation wall up to the steps. It's probably the most durable finish you could ask for and not have to bring then a mason back. And the second thing, just for you could have brick on the outside of it. We are gonna keep the brick at the underside here because that ties back in with, so all this will still remain brick all the way up because that ties in with the addition. But we did not do the brick at the backside like that. We just felt that, one, it was 2 steps, and then two contractors that would have to do that, and a lot more labor intensive and a lot more costly. And SHPO and SED, we've cleared SHPO on this, they don't care. But it's the backside of the building and, so we do have, and this is just excerpt from the bid documents. We do have a full set of bid documents on this. Specs and otherwise. And then we've provided a lot of these images and drawings for the contractor so they can clearly understand how the project works. These are actually this is part of the contract documents. We really want them to understand the job in 3 dimensions because of how it gets shored, because of how it gets supported. They have to really understand it to a different degree. From a schedule standpoint, from a budget standpoint, we've got anything from demolition and shoring to site civil architectural, that's the main focus. Some plumbing systems, remember we're putting in the stormwater for the slab drainage. HVAC systems and electrical, HVAC systems is really a removal and cap off of that existing system. Electrical systems, again, we've got exit light signage, we got the buzzers at the door, we've got the lighting at the underside. And also there is currently on the high wall here, there is no light. And that was a big concern that we're not lighting the stairway and the landing. So we are adding lights at the door locations and for this landing so that you have light there for safety reasons, of course. And then also so you can see those areas at night. So those didn't exist. So that's a little bit of electrical as well. Currently the project estimate, and this was also vetted through Palumbo, we're at about 1.3 million. Again, a very complicated little project. In the bond, in the 2019 referendum, you had 675,000. So we've got a gap of $645, almost $646,000 dollars estimated. And we'll know on the 30th, what the real number is.
So I have a question, Ms. Warren. Did we create dollar amounts in that 2019 referendum for each individual project, or no? Or each individual section?
So I believe, if I recall correctly, and Mr. Velez can correct me if I'm wrong, that this was one of the BCS items, and each BCS item did have a specific dollar amount attached to it.
Okay, so that could be BCS for the last 15, 20 years. Okay. So, and is the plan to use general fund money, in
Yes.
like reserves from general fund?
It would be actual general fund appropriations in the 22-23 fiscal year. It wouldn't be accessing any reserves or fund balance. You would utilize funds that are remaining available, as we anticipate awarding contracts and letting our purchase orders prior to June 30th. So we would use this year's funds to balance that out.
Yeah, we knew this was gonna be more than what the budget was, but that budget was established 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago.
Yeah.
So we knew it was gonna be different and then, I don't know whether that budget contemplated doing the stairway, which probably didn't, but to try to excise that slab without doing the stairs, you just couldn't do it. I mean, those stairs the stairs are falling apart to begin with. So I just think we need to do the whole project and have it done and correct some of the other things that are problematic from safety supervision, lighting, everything else.
Mr. Doré, any comments or questions at all?
I guess my comment would be, contractors being contractors know this is an emergency project. They know it has a timeline, which kind of puts us at a disadvantage. What's the contingency if it comes in at $1.6 million? And at that point, we've already chewed up, I'll ask the question, what's the contingency?
Yeah, I think there's, so these numbers do have contingency in them, right? We're holding out, I wanna say 10% estimated contingency. We actually put 15% contingency for what we're calling a bid time market factor, right?
Okay.
Because we're bidding it now. We put 15% on the numbers because we're bidding it now. We know we're gonna pay a premium, right?
Okay.
We know we're going to. And then we've got the normal, 10% construction contingency, and then the incidentals on top of that.
Okay, so there's some buffer built in.
There is.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we had to. Now, whether those are gonna reflect accurately, I'm hoping we're gonna be under this. It would be really great if we are. But, we're not bidding at the most ideal time. And, and we are gonna hold their feet to the fire that they gotta finish.
Well, that's another question. If they don't finish, is there any sort of liquidated damages or anything in there?
There is liquidated damages in your A232, which is $500 a day for the contractor. So that's in your general conditions. In addition, though, we're gonna have to have a backup plan for the district that if they don't finish on time, you will have to, you won't be allowed to use your gymnasium until we have the certificate of occupancy. And we've talked about maybe there's a strategy of a temporary stair or some other way to handle it. In this condition, it's very difficult to make that work. They really just have to finish the job. We know that the bigger things are the railing systems, so we're gonna wanna get those absolutely right away. And the storefront systems. Well, we can put in temporary doors in storefront, right? That's not the worry. The worry is gonna be the railing system. So we're gonna jump on them with shop drawings immediately, because those gotta be figured out.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks. I don't think we need to go over the schedule for that. You went over what was happening.
Yep.
That's the only thing left. So,
Yeah.
thank you very much. Does anyone else have any questions in regard to any of these projects? We good?
Good, it's been
Thank
going
you very
well.
much.
Appreciate the district's help as well. What's up?
All right,
Yes,
thank you.
Have a good evening.
Signatures.
supposed to be today, I'll look again.
Okay, and it's the board president as well as the superintendent. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna bring a copy of it tomorrow.
That would be helpful.
Okay, I'll bring it again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda, back in the March meeting, I talked to you about the filters, the MERV 13 filter we're using in the schools. At the beginning of the pandemic, everybody was going great to get filters. There were several recommendations between the federal government, the state of New York, SED. Our district decided to go with MERV 13 filters because our unit ventilators can support the MERV 13 filters. So for the last 3 years, we've been using them. Over the last 3 years, technology had changed, the requirements have changed. We can go down to a MERV 8, Zach will explain that to you. So I have met with Zach several times from the country group about getting better filters at a better price. So we tested our filters in one school. He brought his equipment to Chestnut and to a school, we tested it. I feel comfortable that his filter can do our work, but I promise the board that he will come and explain to you all the technicalities of filtering system because I don't know that. He's the professional. So he's here to explain all that to you.
How you doing?
Hello,
Zach from the country group.
thank you.
Okay.
First of all, thank you for giving me your time tonight. I understand you have a busy agenda this evening, so I'm going to be pretty to the point. The purpose of me speaking to you today is really not to sell you my filters. Mr. Velez and I have been communicating for over a year now on that point. I'm here to talk to you about filters in general and what the state requirements are at this point in time. Okay. All right. So ASHRAE, the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers. They really put out standards for HVAC system design, indoor air quality considerations, and provide recommendations that are typically adopted very similarly as policy throughout the state, or excuse me, throughout the country. And I will demonstrate some of their current policies and how those really are mirrored by the state of New York and pretty much states across the country adopt ASHRAE's recommendations. Okay. All right. So ooh, this has dropped out of place. Okay. So after COVID, everyone became very familiar with this term where previously not so much. MERV rating. Okay. MERV rating are the efficiency of air filters. In the case of air filters, we're not talking about fuel efficiency or consumption efficiency. Efficiency means the size of particle that the filter is capable of filtering out of the air. Okay. That efficiency is determined by ASHRAE test 52.2. This was established in 2007. And I'll outline that test a little bit more for you and what goes into that as I progress in the presentation. But just remember MERV rating and what that means, and it's defined by ASHRAE. All right, so let's get right into it here. On the left, you can see a MERV 13 filter, and on the right, you can see a MERV 13 filter. Obviously, by these images, you can see that the material being utilized is very different between the two. On the left, we have what we in the industry refer to as a synthetic material. It's often cotton, poly blends, certain types of plastics. On the right, we have fine fiber media. This is blown glass. Now, the analogy I use for the left is think of a wood line with pine trees, and you decide to hit a golf ball into the wood line. There's very large pine trees causing obstruction, but if you miss one of the pine trees, you're going to go right through. Think of the same wood line. You drive the golf ball, okay, but it's overgrown with brush. These very small fibers here are that brush. That is what is stopping the particles from penetrating the filter. All right. Now, when you're getting down to very small size particles, you need these fine fibers to stop particles from passing through. Now, the immediate question when I show this image is how are these two filters the same MERV rating? They look very different, right? I mean, you would imagine the one on the right with much more intertwined fibers is going to stop more dirt, debris, etc., than the one on the left. Okay, we're going to get into this. All right, another thing I'd like to point out about the media here, the fine fibers, right? As you can see, the larger fibers are relatively clean in comparison to the finer fibers. The finer fibers are what are really stopping most of the particles that are entering the filter. That's that brush in the wood line, okay? If you're hitting the golf ball, you may catch one of the pine trees, but really you're probably gonna hit the brush, and contact with multiple smaller branches will eventually stop the golf ball. It's the exact same concept with a particle that's being sucked into a HVAC system, okay? All right, so back to the synthetic fibers. As you can see, there's much larger gaps here, and the nature of the material is very different than the fine fiber media. Yet, it has a MERV 13 rating. How is this achieved? Electrostatic charge, all right? The analogy I always use is think of rubbing the balloon as a kid up against the wall, right? Or if you take your clothing out of the dryer, that static electricity is what binds it together. Same thing applies in this situation. As particles are moving through the filter, they're attracted to this static charge. However, that static charge is not permanent. Oftentimes it's very temporary. Filters will begin to reduce in efficiency. Remember, efficiency meaning the size of particle they're capable of filtering almost immediately. Okay? University of Minnesota in 2014 conducted a study in conjunction with ASHRAE to examine the efficiency over time of air filters. Once this new test had been established, they found that synthetic charged media reduces in efficiency over time dramatically. Okay? Whereas fine fiber media maintains constant efficiency and actually increases as more particles are introduced to the media. So what that means, you have a MERV 13, it then drops to a MERV 11, then a 10, then a 9, then an 8, potentially dropping to an 8 and a 7 from a 13. This can happen over a period of days to weeks. Whereas a fine fiber media starts at, let's say, a MERV 9 and remains at a MERV 9 for the entirety of its life. Okay. Remember I mentioned ASHRAE 52.2, this is the test standard that determines a MERV rating of the filter. What occurs is in a lab, you have a contained unit and an air filter is placed at the face of this unit and particles are shot at the filter. ASHRAE then measures which particles make it through the filter and apply a MERV rating to the media. This test is less than 5 minutes long, it's instantaneous. As you can imagine, filters that have that static charge perform fine. Okay, so according to a 52.2 test, that filter is a MERV 13 in the instantaneous test. Once this University of Minnesota study came out, they realized, okay, we're losing efficiency. They developed the Appendix J to this test. This is a test where the charge is removed from the media and then retested. This is reflective over how the filter performs over its life. A lot of these MERV 13 filters, really all of them, are dropping actually to a MERV 8. Now, this is a MERV A rating, meaning that the company is guaranteeing you that the efficiency that is labeled on the filter will remain at that efficiency for its entire life. Now, this is pertinent now due to COVID-19 considerations, okay? That's why MERV 13 has been adopted across the state. That's why school districts were very interested in using them from the start. The problem with MERV 13 filters that are found in school settings, okay, totally different story if you're talking about hospital settings or air handlers with very large spaces for different types of air filters. In a school, you have 2-inch or 1-inch unit ventilator filters. Those are not capable of achieving and holding a MERV 13. They're all electrostatically charged media. So you're paying a tremendous amount of money for that higher MERV rated filter that reduces in efficiency over time. Okay. So let's get to what the state says today. This is from the New York State Education Department 2022. They haven't published 23 yet to my knowledge. Manual of Planning Standards. They want a MERV 10 or higher in school systems, except for unit ventilators, which is the biggest cost to any school district. They say a MERV 7 or higher. They want you to consider using a MERV 13, but again, to maintain a MERV 13 in a unit ventilator, they need to be changed constantly because they'll lose that efficiency level up to within a month of when they're being installed. Okay. Let's move on to ASHRAE's Manual of Planning Standards. This applies nationally. This applies to really any building type you can imagine. They have planning standards that they recommend. And these are referenced for local code a large majority of the time. An 8 up to a 13, no lower than an 8 for classrooms with children, okay? Again, this is 2020, all right, an ASHRAE journal publication. They're advising that charged media filters lose efficiency over time and that this must be considered in design consideration. If you're trying to achieve a MERV 13, you have to factor in the cost of constantly changing the filters. All right. Now, now we're moving on a little bit to specifically cam fill products, which I said I'm not going to do unless there's interest. Right now, we're just talking about the MERV 13 aspect and the costs associated with that. Does anybody have any questions about the nature of the filter or why you're, any questions about code or considerations behind that?
You said that the filters are meant to block particles,
There.
not to absorb them.
Yes.
They're to just block them from going forward.
No, I'm sorry. So in the, for the purpose of my example, I did use the term block, but you're absolutely right. They absorb particles. A good filter should trap particles and then they shouldn't leave the filter at any point. Okay, so even if you're taking it out, you shake it, you might get a little bit, but the purpose is to contain dangerous particles within the medium.
Do you find that, Andy, when you replace filters?
When you take them out, you lose some of the debris in the filter. We currently change our filters 4 times a year. And each of the time that we change it, it's like $37,000. And going into the MERV 13, the standard when the COVID started is we gotta change them every 3 months, and that's what we did. We did that in the school.
For a dollar figure estimate, to get to the point here of why the change is being considered, the district for this next fiscal year, you're looking at spending over $100,000 on air filters for MERV 13 filters that, again, at the 3-month mark, at the MERV 13 level, you're capable of filtering a 0.3 micron particle. That is the size of COVID-19 within a droplet. You're almost immediately losing your MERV 13, however, and as soon as it drops below that, you're no longer filtering any type of airborne virus out of the air. So you're spending significant sums of money for something that's really not mitigating COVID is the moral of this story to the extent as advertised or thought at the beginning of the pandemic. There's been a tremendous amount of research since then and now, okay? Also, the service life recommended by MERV 13 filters is very short. Even forget charge and MERV rating, they just are not capable of handling as much dust and debris, regular dust and debris, not virus aside. That's why they need to be changed very frequently. You can reduce your costs from north of $100,000 a year to around $45,000 to $52,000 a year by converting the type of filter that you're using. So, our company has been very successful in implementing our filters with districts throughout the state because of that cost consideration.
And the initial rating of your filter
Is a 9,
is a 9.
a 9A. It will stay at a 9. Doesn't drop below a 9. This is effective for reducing spread of bacteria, pollens, other harmful agents that you do not want breathed in. However, not for stopping viruses. Anything below a MERV 13 is incapable of capturing any virus in a droplet. But again, because of the nature of the filter, they're 2-inch or 1-inch filters, you have a very small amount of media to stop contaminants. And that's just school HVAC systems. In a hospital, we produce a filter that starts at a MERV 13 and stays there, but it's a big box and it's in a giant air handling unit that's feeding a surgical wing or a burn ward, et cetera. In a school, there is no product out there that starts at a MERV 13 and stays at a MERV 13. And as soon as you drop below a MERV 13 to anything below that, you're no longer stopping viruses. So kind of negating the whole thought process behind implementing a MERV 13.
So question, if
Yes.
we change the filter 3 times during the year, then 4 times a year. So if we switch filters, how many times a year do we have to change them?
Once. So the asterisk to that is you guys do have some 1/2-inch filters throughout your district, a fairly small number. Those still need to be changed quarterly.
Does the office want the small one?
Exactly.
Classroom 2-inch.
2-inch and 1-inch filters can be changed once a year. We recommend a change in August. Keeping in mind the seasonal trends. The fall, you'll still see contaminant. Winter is very light. Spring is the heaviest time of year. At that point, the filter is nearing the end of its life, but you're planning on changing it soon anyway. Our filters, to be frank, are much more expensive because they're the fine fiber media. They last 4 times as long now. So we've won a lot of business in the state because people put out a bid for their fiscal year. Ours are not 4 times as much as a budget filter that is not as long lasting. So over the course of the fiscal year, we dramatically reduce filter spend because you only have to buy 1 filter and it will last and do the job of 4 filters.
So, what I get out of this is, your filters are cheaper in the yearly run of things.
Yes.
Your filters do not filter out viruses.
They do not.
The other filters do for a much shorter period than we think they do,
Yes.
but they do it for part of their lifespan.
They do. Unfortunately, we don't have an exact metric for how long synthetic charges last. It depends on the nature of the HVAC system, their handling, their age. Some MERV 13 filters that you're buying are already not a MERV 13 because they've been touched too much and the charge has been dissipated. Really, the answer is it depends. I wish I had a better metric to provide to you, but you know, some, when we retest, are very, very short. You know, they drop from a 13 to an 11 within days. I would say that's pretty common, to be honest, because it's just the nature of a static charge. The more surface area you have within the filter, the more surface area there is to cling to the charge. But if you have a 1-inch filter, right, you're greatly reducing the surface area, thus reducing the capability of the charge to cling to anything. So in the unit ventilators in classrooms where we're most concerned with exposure to viruses, the MERV 13 is lasting very, very minimally, unfortunately. It's just kind of the nature of the systems that are in place, very commonly in school systems.
Do you have schools that may use the other filter at times, like flu times or virus times, and then your filters the rest of the school year?
So, but it's an interesting question you're posing here, because what we recommend is if you want to mitigate the spread of an airborne virus, there's much better measures to take than changing the filter, to be frank. I'm not an HVAC expert. I understand filters and the nature of filtration. But the amount of air changes an hour that are occurring in a classroom, for example, run by a 1500 CFM unit ventilator, is not enough to dissipate airborne particles and prevent spreading of a virus that's airborne. We offer UV lighting, and not just we, there's other people who do this, that can be turned on and off in times when students are in the rooms. That's very effective at destroying the COVID-19 virus. It denatures its DNA. We also offer in-room air cleaning devices that have a HEPA filter inside of them, and they conduct quite a few air changes an hour. Some schools that we work with directly have said, we're going to put units like this in the nurse's office, in the weight room, in the gymnasium, because there's a lot of breathing. People may be in very close contact compared to other places. That is a much better mitigation effort. However, there's a cost associated with all of these things. But the filter alone is, unfortunately, in these settings, not really the most effective mitigation effort. And it was applied at the time because when you look at MERV ratings, it does stop COVID. But then you have to consider the nature of the room, how many people are in it, how many air changes are being conducted, how often you're changing the filter, the type of unit that you're putting it in. So it's a very nuanced conversation, where at the time these things were being put out because, you know, there was a lot of concern about public health. Exactly. So.
Does anybody else have any other questions at all in regards to this?
So this is approved by the state?
It is. Yeah, again, so just to go back to 2022, the state, again, if you can, they say, sure, put in a higher MERV rating. But many, if not all schools that we deal with have stepped away from the MERV 13 because they're saying, we don't have the budget to keep up with, 4, 5, 6, 7 air filter changes a year. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars. They say it's not fiscally practical. So the state kind of backpedaled a little bit and said, do what you can. Don't have it so low that you're not filtering anything out of the air. But we understand that the MERV 13 may not be practical in the long term for school districts.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you have any other important points you want to bring to us? We got other,
Yeah, no, again, basics of,
you enlightened us on this subject. Sure.
thank you.
I have one more question. Do
Yes.
you have a state contract?
We do not. We have 2 county contracts that pretty much every district who works with us piggybacks on the county contract with fixed pricing for the fiscal year.
So we can access those contracts?
Yes, yep. Everybody who buys from us utilizes those, every school district that is utilizes those.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you all, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay. Now we go to 1.03.
Mr. Velez will take over.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
This one is easy. We have 4 facility use requests.
It's actually
Yes,
very
it's
quick.
on the-
Okay.
We got the tree donation.
Right here. This is that right?
Yes.
Perfect. So there's actually
This-
4, Mona, if you could go to the second page.
The second page, the Down River had 2.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know the
That's
second page.
Oh.
Sorry.
So there's 4 requests, 2 from the Down River.
See if I can flip it. Is that the flip? Yeah.
There you go.
Perfect.
So Down River Recreation Department has 2. One is for Garnetown. Every year they use Garnetown for the Junior Police Academy. It's a 4 or 5 week program that they use the school. 90% of the time they are outside, but if it rains, they go in the building. They use the gym for the tourists to teach the kids the skill that they need in the summer. We have one from the Windsor town, that's for the Memorial Day Parade. Every year they have a Memorial Day on Route 94, and they use the New Windsor School to park the vehicles. It's just the outside of the school. They park the vehicles, and at the end they bring all the fire trucks to the little show there. And the Puma Soccer League wanna use NFA North. Behind NFA North, between NFA and Guinea Avenue School, we have a small field. And they use it for the little kids, K-3, to teach them how to play soccer.
Mr. Dore, any questions on any of these?
No, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Horizon windows.
Our Horizon School, for the past 2 years, I've been talking to you guys about fixing windows. We're fixing windows. Last meeting, we talked about the windows at NFA. We complete that project. All the windows at NFA are new. At Horizons on the Hudson, 5 years ago, we replaced all the windows in front of the school, not the windows in the back of the school. So during the last 6-7 months, we've been repairing all the windows in the back of the school. This was the last 22 windows at Horizons. So all the windows in the back are being repaired, new balances and new window screens, except for the window that had air conditioner. So that was completed 2 weeks ago. So I want to let the board know that we finally finished that project. So I have a list of all the schools that we've done. It's 7 schools that we repair windows. We spent a little over $500,000 doing this job. But all these windows needed it. The windows in Garnetown, for example, they were supposed to be replaced during the bond. And we found this company that came and retrofit them, put on new balance, new screens, and we saved a couple $1 million worth of the windows. And the work come with a 5-year warranty. So far, of all the windows they're done, we had to fix one, and it wasn't that it broke, it was that we were fixing an air conditioner and they dropped on top of the window, we broke the balance, they came and they fixed it. So this company has a state contract. It's been good, and I think this is the last time I'm gonna talk to you about windows, hopefully for a long time.
No, you're gonna start over again at the beginning.
Every time I go to Kimberly, we have more windows, and Kimberly's only here a year, and I talked to her like 4 times, we're gonna talk about windows again. She said, this is the last one, I go, yeah, it's the last one. So, we're good with windows going forward.
Okay.
Which one is the trees?
We have, the city of Newburgh is working with the Greater Newburgh Park Conservancy. They wanna donate 10 large trees to be planted in front of South Middle School on the Montgomery side. If you know the building, we have the school, the parking lot, and then a small area of grass before the street. They want to plant these trees there. They're donating them, and they want to plant them tomorrow. We had
Literally.
Yeah, we have,
Literally
yeah,
tomorrow.
we have met with them 3 times. We met with the principal, Cassius Collars was there. We talked to superintendent. I talked to Kimberly. First, they wanted planting last week, but we said, no, we haven't talked to the board yet. We have to wait. They paying for the whole funding is $7,600. It's a donation to the school. So I want to make sure that the board is okay with that. Unfortunately, we had to plant it before the board meeting next week because the planting season is coming to an end. So we were pushing it to go after the board meeting, but they insisted, the arborist is saying, we have to do it now because this is the time to plant. So I'm asking permission to plant them tomorrow.
Well, Mr. Doré, did they have your permission to,
So when you say we are planting, we, the schools?
No, they're planting, they do it,
Oh,
they
they're
do it on the
planting,
planting, we just have to water them.
Oh, okay,
For the first 6 weeks, we have to water them every day.
okay. I think that's all right.
Yeah, so
okay,
they-
and I'm good with that too.
I say we because we're working together, but they bring the tree, they planting them, they staking them. And
So, just a quick question, we make people giving a donation have to fill out this form? And
anything over $1,000 donation has to be approved by the board.
Right, so there is prescribed form to be filled out to come with that donation, to inform us so we can write the proper resolution
Did I
for the
send you
board
the
to
form?
accept the donation.
Yeah, up there.
And I have the form, there's the form, so if
I've
you,
never seen the form, I believe, they wanna give something to us and we're making them fill.
and believe it or not,
We facilitate.
Okay.
and believe it or not, in all the years that I work here, this is the first time I'm getting a donation through buildings and grounds. We never get donations. So
That's true.
I learned this process with Kimberly last week when I talked to her. She goes, there's a form you have to, I go, I did not know that. So here we are with the form because we never get donations in our department.
Do we ask them to provide insurance?
They provided the insurance,
Okay,
yeah, for this, yes,
okay.
we have that already. And they have an arborist, this person, actually, they have $3 million. And I said to them, can you donate more? So.
We got a lot of buildings, you know.
Yeah, so I might come back to you asking you to donate more, but we're gonna start with South, because in front of the school, there's no trees there, and there's a lot of sun. So this is gonna help us with shade, and the kids can go outside. The principal is very excited because they can use this for education in this area.
Sound good?
Alright, very good.
Okay, so I'll bring it to Dr. Campbell to sign tomorrow.
That's to the end of the agenda.
That is it, okay. So that's the end of this meeting for facilities, and we'll see you all next month. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.